Okay, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm sorry I'm late. It has been a very hectic schedule over the last several days, but let me begin with these opening remarks. As we announced late last night, KU and Les Miles have mutually agreed to part ways effective immediately as of last night. It was imperative for me to meet with the team before sharing this with the outside world, the people outside of our program. So last night at about approximately 9:45 p.m., I met with the team and I shared them the news that Coach Miles and I had agreed to mutually separate and that he would no longer be the head coach at the University of Kansas. As I shared with our football student athletes, I know there are a lot of emotions running on right now with our student athletes. They came here to play for KU. They came here to get an education. They came here to be better student athletes and play the game of football. I told them that's not changing. We're going to continue to do everything we can to support them as football players in pursuing their athletic pursuits and academically in the classroom. That KU degree will be incredibly of value to them. I know through my many years of experience, these changes are very difficult. And they're most difficult on the student athletes in the program. And I'm not sure sometimes the outside world, again, understands that. But this is a team, a brotherhood, people that lean on each other. And they're supported by a special group of coaches and staff that all love them and support them. So our focus is on those student athletes, and we're working very hard to support them in this time. This parting was in the best interest of the University of Kansas, and it's in our best interest to move forward in a new direction. As for the interim head coach, I've met with several assistant coaches this morning, and I continue to evaluate who would be the best leader for our young men at this time. I don't want to rush that decision. You know, I have Mike DeBoard as my acting head coach, but that was simply to step in administratively for me. But I'm going to take my time. I hope to do that in the next day or two, but I think our student athletes need to know who that interim is. So we want to work as quickly as possible, but I want to evaluate that situation as well. I'm also planning a national search for a new head coach to lead this program. And the timeline on that is undetermined at this time. There are a lot of quality young men, quality football players and quality young men on this football team. And our priority is those student athletes. It's important to me that we find a great leader that will inspire our student athletes on and off the football field. We've built our program over the last 2.5 years. We've added the quality control. We've added our analysts. We've added nutritionists. We've added operations people. We've added recruiting staff. So we believe the support program behind our coaches is there and has allowed our program to grow and will eventually lead to success on the football field. Before I open it up to questions, I want to provide some background on the 2018 search process so our fans, alumni, and donors have the facts on what actually took place back then. When Les Miles was identified as the lead candidate to be the head coach in 2018, as the University of Kansas and Kansas Athletics does, with all hirings, we ran multiple background checks on Coach Miles. I also asked Coach Miles directly during the interview process whether there was anything in his past that could potentially embarrass the university or himself or our program, and he said no. We also did our due diligence by talking to individuals within the LSU athletics department to see if there was anything we should be aware of regarding Coach Miles' tenure at LSU, and received no indications of any issues. In early February, Coach Miles' legal counsel made us aware of a legal dispute in Louisiana involving Les, but they could not share the nature of the legal dispute or the formal documentation. At that point, we requested copies After hearing this, I asked Coach Miles if there was anything in these reports that we should be concerned about, and again, he assured me no. At that point, we requested copies of any and all reports related to Les Miles while he was at LSU. We were given a variety of reasons from Miles' legal counsel why they would not be provided to us. On February 24th, we learned some details of the allegations when the Advocate published its initial article, followed by the USA Today article later that same day, that there had been a secret settlement and a sexual harassment investigation in 2013. The Taylor Porter report referenced in the article was the subject of litigation in the LSU courts. So we did not have access to it until last Thursday when it was released publicly. Additionally, the Hush Blackwell report that was issued on Friday detailed much of the underlying allegations and the formal records for the first time. It was evident from LSU's response on Friday that many individuals at LSU were unaware of the allegations of inappropriate contact, and that individuals at the institution at the time went through great lengths to keep the information confidential. Given all of this information, yesterday, we agreed to part ways. I'm beyond disappointed that the University of Kansas is in this position, but it is absolutely the right decision for our university and our student athletes. I'm encouraged by the time I spent with our football staff and student athletes last night and several of our assistant coaches this morning. We will be taking substantive steps in the coming days, including talking to supportive and invested alumni and former players, and including choosing a search firm as we begin to look for the next leader of the University of Kansas Jayhawk football team. With that, I will be happy to take your questions. And Dan, I don't know how this works, but.
All right, you should be able to unmute your lines and go ahead and ask questions, please.
Hey, Mr. Long, this is Todd Lebo at Sports Radio 810 in Kansas City.
Hi, Todd.
If knowing your past relationship you'd had for all these years with Les Miles, do you feel, what are your feelings that when you asked these questions directly back in 2018, you didn't seem to get an honest answer? This wasn't someone you just met during the search process. You'd known him for a long time.
Yeah, I can't really answer why Coach Miles responded the way he did. I have known Les for 30 years. I think sometimes, and he is I consider him a friend. We did not work closely together or know each other well from that time in Michigan in the early 1990s. So I think much is played about the friendship. It's a friendship that was certainly not the reason behind why we were hiring him to be the head coach. He was an established head coach. He was an incredible recruiter. So those were the reasons we landed on Coach Miles at the time.
And just one quick follow-up. I know this is very early in the process, but what sort of importance will you place on someone who's got maybe a connection to what it means to be a Jayhawk or someone who knows what football is like at the University of Kansas as you look forward to whoever's going to lead your program?
Yeah, that is important. And as I mentioned, as I look to hire the next head coach, I'm going to lean on and seek thoughts from those former players, former, alumni, donors, people that have been invested in our program. The one thing I know, the people around our program, those that are here with us, they're deeply invested. They want to see success. They want to see our student athletes have success on the football field. And that's what we're going to work to do. So certainly we'll be open to their thoughts and as we move forward.
Hey, Mr. Long, Sam Lance with the University Daily Kansan. Do you guys have any leading candidates for a new head coach at this moment?
To be very honest, no, because I haven't had a chance to focus on that at all. Again, my focus has been those student athletes. It's been those coaches. It's been all the support staff in the Anderson complex. That's been the most important thing to me. And I have some more work to do there before I, really get into a search process. So no, there's no leading candidates or anybody that I've considered at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Jeff, is there any concern from you about the status of your job at this point and what this might mean to that?
I as I say, I focus on these student athletes. I got into intercollegiate athletics for what athletics did for me. I know how important, this experience as a football student athlete or a rower or a tennis player is. So really my focus is on them. I use them to guide me in making my decisions, and I, have continued to work in their best interest. So, that's the way I look at that and understand the question.
Yeah, and I also wonder how worried are you about, I guess, donor relations or just the overall support of this program, that's obviously had a rough decade, and now this is the latest thing on top of that. Are you worried that that'll be another hit at all?
Well, I'm hoping that I can, soon as I can, have those open and candid conversations for what we're trying to do. I think those that are close to our program know about the infrastructure I talked about that we put into our program, the way we built the program. I think the recruiting success we've had is a large part because of that infrastructure, and then the coaches that we have on staff, the assistant coaches that have been recruiting hard. So, I'm happy to have those conversations with them. Certainly, we need their support more than ever. This is not a change that we obviously anticipated. And despite the record during the COVID season, we see progress. I see a roster of young men built on high school student athletes that are going to have success here at Kansas. I have no doubt about that. I admire these young men and how hard they compete. And you know what? I wish I could get in there alongside them, but I'm here to support them. I want them to keep fighting for the Jayhawks, and I'm sure they'll do that.
And just one more quick one. With regard to the settlement that just came out, was it contract language? Can you clarify why there was the need for the settlement? And also, if you can, where does the money come from for that settlement with Les?
Well, certainly, let me answer that two-part question. I got to remember the first part first. But, there come times when institutions and athletic programs and universities have to make tough decisions. And, as I sought counsel from the university and the chancellor, we arrived at what we felt was in the best interest of the program. And that was for us to mutually part ways with Les, and to do that we had to get to a certain amount of compensation. And obviously any amount is something that is a challenge for us, especially in COVID-19. We honestly and truly feel that's in the best sense of our program. The money will come from athletic department revenues, whether that's through our Williams Fund donations or whether that's through operational dollars that we achieve. So it will come from athletics money. It will not come from university dollars in any way, shape, or form.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeff, Seren Petro from WHB here in Kansas
Hi, Seren.
City. How are you?
Good.
The first, maybe just a little bit of clarity. You mentioned an interim coach kind of talking to the staff in-house, and then also the search. Does that mean to say the interim coach would be now until you hire a full-time coach, or would you? I know other universities that have been in a position like this where the coach leaves late in the process have brought in a coach designate, for lack of a better term, that would coach just the next year, and maybe there's more candidates available next year. Or are you set on you're going to hire the guy that's the long-term guy, or could there be somebody from the outside that holds that interim title?
Yeah, great question, Seren. I think it is still too early to make that determination, to be candid. As you know, and those who follow football closely know, this is an unusual time to be conducting a search. college programs are into their spring practices, either starting or approaching them. So your questions are all the things that I'm going to assess and with the support of others, make some decisions on how we move forward. So you're right on track with your questions. We just haven't made those decisions yet. And with regard to the interim, yes, I think right now Mike DeBoard is acting, but I think the interim position is a little more permanent, so to speak, and that it will lead us through whether the search process, whether it concludes before spring practice, after spring practice. So that interim person will be more the administrator and the leader of the program while we sort things out.
Okay. And then you had a number of assistants leave here, even some of them fairly recently. Some of them people would say, a lateral or even a step back. Was that a warning sign when you saw that maybe there was, when a couple of coaches are going from, say, just one in particular, Kansas to SMU, that maybe we had a problem? Was that something that raised a red flag in your office?
It certainly did not raise any kind of a red flag with what is happening from down at LSU. Coaching staffs are, very complex groups, and people leave for various reasons. Those coaches have different reasons for why they left. I was aware of them. None of them alarmed me.
Thank you.
Jeff, to what extent do you anticipate the search firm playing a role in this process, and I guess what do you foresee or expect that search firm's role to be?
Yeah, I think search firms provide a number of things. First of all, they bring forth a group of candidates that they are aware of from whether it's other searches or whether it's contacts with agents and such. So they bring a pool. We would then bring, our own pool from our thoughts and what we have gained from talking to people, and quite frankly, people reaching out. We've had a large number of people reaching out very quickly to us about this. And I do think that's a sign of the position we brought our program to, and that we have gained ground over the last 2.5 years. So I think that's a very positive sign. They would help us conduct the interview process. They would help us arrange those visits. They would do background checks. They would do a lot of that administrative stuff for us behind the scenes, so we could focus on the candidate itself and how they fit with KU.
Yeah, and what would your response be to KU fans that would maybe be a little bit leery about your involvement after 2018 and maybe want an independent search firm to handle the whole process?
Yeah, I don't think it's in the best interest of the University of Kansas or any university for an outside entity to totally control a search process. I'm very comfortable and confident of my years in college football. I'm confident that I can conduct the search. I'm confident that I can find the next leader of the University of Kansas.
Along those lines, will anyone else at KU be more involved this time, the chancellor or anybody else?
Well, there were people that I kept in contact the last search, but certainly I will continue to involve our chancellor and his leadership team and share with them as I would do with any search. So whether they're more involved or not, I would say they would be involved as they usually are. I do want to bring in some, again, as I said, former football players, people that know our program that can help assist with this as well.
Hey, Jeff, this is a little bit along those same lines too. This is Sam Mellinger in Kansas City. This is something that in normal times maybe I try to ask you to the side, so I apologize for the format here. But the hires that you made in Arkansas, we're talking a lot about Les, but the hires in Arkansas weren't successful either. Are there things that you've learned?
In what regard? I would have to ask, what regard were they not successful?
On the field? I mean, and the Petrino thing, we don't need to get into that, but like, what have you learned from those processes, or why do you think KU fans should be confident that you can make this hire the right one?
Yeah. Well, like I said, I've been involved in college football my entire professional life. I've worked at a number of institutions. I worked in a number of conferences. I have, worked in many different ways in college football. But I think I'm uniquely prepared, having been a college football coach at the Division I level at a Power 5 school early in my career, and then having worked at a number of Power 5 institutions along the way. So I'm confident in my knowledge. I'm confident in my experience. And, I have no doubt that we can find the next great leader for the KU in the best interests of our student athletes.
Hey, when you hired Les, did you go back and look into what went on at Oklahoma State with the student hostess program there? And that was obviously detailed in a pretty big Sports Illustrated report back in 2013, I believe.
Yes, and yes, we were aware of that. And then we also saw the subsequent reports where that article was brought into question. We certainly reviewed the Oklahoma State and the NCAA and what they found in that case. And again, many of the things reported in that article subsequently were found to be not true, as we viewed it. So wasn't overly concerned. In addition, he spent a lengthy time at the university or LSU that would certainly be the more relevant information for us.
We've got time for a couple more questions for Jeff, please.
Jeff, can I just put a bow on Les real quick? To be clear, that you didn't hear of any conduct or anything while he was at Kansas that concerned you or alarmed you. Is that correct?
While at the University of Kansas?
Right.
No, there were nothing reported to me at the time that would concern me. No.
Okay. Thank you.
Jeff, Harold Kuntz from Fox 4. Regarding the Kansas program, the last 5 coaches just haven't had success on the field. How sellable is the Kansas program right now, considering where you guys are right now, and you've got a lot of student athletes in limbo, not knowing who their coach is at this point of the year?
Yeah, I think we're an attractive program because we're building. As I mentioned, from 2018, when we had a recruiting class, I think of somewhere around 21 junior college players, somewhere in that vicinity. We've lived through that, and we've built our program back with high school student athletes, kids who played in high school, came directly to the University of Kansas. They're starting here in the development program, strength and conditioning program. We did have a setback during COVID last year when we didn't have spring practice. But everybody faced that. But when you're a young, growing program, that had more of an impact. I think as coaches look at this opportunity, I think they will see a totally different roster. I think the quality and the high level of student athlete we've brought here and how they've developed would be an exciting opportunity for a head coach. We are working our way back to that 85 scholarship limit number that you all have heard about for many years. We're closer than we ever have been in a number of years. So we're going to work hard to keep the student athletes that are with us. And I think we have a bright future in front of us because we've built with high school players who are young, excited, and eager to win for KU.
Jeff, this is Matt Fortuna of The Athletic. You mentioned earlier about settling with Les Miles. That's a departure from what you did with David Beatty. Philosophically, what changed from your seat, from Kansas' seat?
Yeah, each situation is very different. That was focused around NCAA. This was focused around something else. So each situation is very different, so I don't really compare those two at all.
All right, we've got time for one more question, please.
Hey, Jeff. Jeff, this is Andy. Jeff, this is Andy Staples from The Athletic. You mentioned that you asked Les if there was anything that would embarrass the program or the university, and he said no. Wouldn't lying to you in that instance void his contract or make it where you could fire him for cause?
Andy, that's really a legal question as to how he could or couldn't respond at that time. But that was his response. And so
but that is a lie. That is a lie to you because there was something and now here you are embarrassed. So why would you pay him in this instance to leave?
That is debatable whether that's a lie. And again, I'll leave that to our legal people to dice that out. So we felt it's important to move our program forward, that we needed to basically agree to mutually part and pay less through the remainder of 21 is basically what it comes out to. So
right. Thank you.